War Thunder's ground RB has got to be one of the most miserable experiences ever. First of all, the grinding is painfully slow. It's not like you always research new, higher tier vehicles, but you also need to research more tanks to complete your current lineup, or for some other reason. When you play a match of ground RB, sometimes you could take minutes just to find match that isn't halfway finished. And you're probably thinking that the long matchmaking times were because the game was finding the right server for your lineup, right? Not always. In my experience, I kept getting up tier with my most recent line of vehicles, which was a lot of fun. There's also CAS, Close Air Support, which allows players to spawn planes in a ground RB match, which doesn't make sense. This is supposed to be a tank game mode. You fight enemy tanks with tanks, not with planes, and you'll often find yourself helpless against these planes that can just bomb you with ease. But what if you had none of those problems? Imagine a tank game with a way faster grind, no CAS, no long waiting times, and no up tiers. Actually don't, because there's a game called Cursed Tank Simulator, and it's on Roblox. Cursed Tank Simulator is a tank game like War Thunder's Ground RB, except that you can build your own tanks. You can choose your own hull, turret, and gun from a wide selection and attach them to your liking. You can either select certain parts to make the best tanks for combat, or just attach random parts together to create an abomination and hope for the best. Or maybe you'd like to stick to real life and LARP, using tanks that exist in real life among the abominations. Personally, I prefer making combinations to make the best tanks for combat, but it's really up to you. When you first enter the game, you're greeted with an offer where, if you complete the tutorial, you get 125 quits. Quits are the secondary currency of the game, and you use them to pay for cosmetics. After completing the tutorial and receiving the quits, and the other tutorial showing you the layout of the game, you now have a lineup of 4 tanks. You start with 3,000 yen, the primary currency, and with this, you can start buying new hulls, turrets, and guns and begin customizing. Of course, you need enough yen, so you have to play to earn more in order to be able to continue buying more parts to make more tanks. You buy new parts from Joe's Shack from the dealership drop-down menu. There's also another shop called Blueprints. This is basically a better, more unique version of Joe's Shack. But instead of getting the part that you bought, you buy the blueprint of the thing that you wanted, and you have to craft it from materials that you get from crates that you get from playing the game. While this game's aesthetic seems unserious, the game actually has balancing mechanics when you customize your tanks. Sure, you can strap the biggest gun onto an L3, but the consequence is that the gun weighs more than the tank, causing the tank to topple over. Strapping different parts with each their own weight affects the tank's stats. For example, a smaller gun allows you to reload faster and makes the rotation speed faster, and vice versa. Attaching bigger turrets and or guns to the hull consequently makes it slower, and vice versa. So no, don't expect to wipe everyone out easily with a fast mobile tank with a large gun due to the drawbacks of using a gun that doesn't pair well with the hull and or turrets. To play, you click on the play button and a list of servers for your own lineups tier shows up. So don't worry about being put into an up tier, as you can only play in servers hosting your lineups tier. You'll most likely spawn in the middle of the game, so that's one drawback for this kind of system. Moving on, in this game, the players vote for the map. This is actually a good feature because War Thunder sometimes repeats the same maps over and over again, which may not align with what players want. This game, as mentioned, has no CAS, so you can actually call this a tank game. You also don't need to wait minutes to join a match, as you can simply join an ongoing match that only hosts players of your tier, which also solves the up tier problem. The primary reason why I call this the fun version of War Thunder is that you don't get punished for dying. You don't pay for your vehicles to be repaired in the hangar, which means you can respawn as much as you want. So feel free to try your wacky tanks and mess around without stressing about getting enough kills. The game still gives you rewards despite not getting any kills or even just dying. With all those merits that this game has, it still has issues. First of all, there are issues with the controls. There is no way to change the keybinds. Personally, I never had any significant problem with the keybinds, but there are probably a few people who aren't comfortable with the current keybinds. And then you have the commander's view problem. In War Thunder, you just right click to move to the position that views what the actual commander of the thing would have seen. This kind of view, I don't really know how to explain this, but if you've been playing War Thunder, you know why you do it. But in Cursed Tank Simulator, you have to scroll until your camera reaches the commander's view, and that makes it pretty inconvenient to use. Another one before the biggest issue here is that for some reason the enemy's usernames are visible. They're visible when you get close to them, and yes, at that distance, with or without the username, you'd already know that there's an enemy. However, sometimes I feel like that this could give an advantage in certain situations. And now, the biggest issue is that some of the maps have lots of wide sightlines to deal with, and with little cover compared to the sightlines, like Fields of A and some others. This makes it good for the snipers, but not for every other playstyle, like the brawler playstyle. I play this map just fine, I'm not blind, but I absolutely prefer the other ones, except maybe base plate. This map is the opposite of Fields of A since it's 95% close quarters, and there are issues with it. Your spawn lies across the enemy spawn, and without a minute in, you can already meet the enemy. The map is too small, which causes you and the enemy to face off really quickly, and the enemy spawns being across your spawns doesn't help. And because of the short time it takes to get to any point in the map, enemies can come from anywhere when you're playing this map, or at least that's what I think, so correct my theory if I'm wrong. But there are good maps as well, such as UK. I had the most fun playing this map, probably because it has a lot of flanking routes and I love flanking, but again, biased or not, it's my opinion. I've always been striving to get the best tank and be a pro, so you could say that I was a sweaty player. However, looking back, there was a lot that I missed. There was stuff that I just dismissed as bad, stat-wise. However, at the end of the day, that should not be the mentality. This game is supposed to be fun. So I let my sweaty self go and tried out the stuff that I've been missing. In conclusion, awesome game. Again, the customizability of this game and the massive amount of forgiveness it gives compared to the other game really takes away the stress and allows for so much fun. So don't be pressured to be the best or to be the MVP. Do whatever you want. About that, at the time of editing this video, the devs decided to add an update which added a bunch of things, but what we're going to be focusing on is the change on how buying stuff works. They changed the UI for the shops, which in my opinion looks worse and doesn't really add or improve anything. But look at this, now you have to buy a few stuff from the tier you're buying to be able to buy more stuff from the same tier. And if you want to try buying something from the tier above your tier, if you don't have a few parts or modules from your tier, you can't buy them even though you have the money. I don't know why would they make the progression slower. I'm pretty sure the appeal, other than being able to customize your own tanks, is the insane speed of progression even if it's not directly stated. I guess they either thought it was too fast for some reason or to encourage people to explore and try out different parts, but even for people who want to try different things and take it more slowly, they still have certain parts that they want to buy over the others first. So if they want to buy a hull or turret or gun that requires them to buy a couple of other stuff first, that would force them to grind a lot more to get the parts that they actually want. And now, everybody's favorite part, the rating. The good far outweighs the bad, despite the flaws it has that can impact the fun of it all, especially with the new shop, which impacts the score down from 8 out of 10 to 7 out of 10, sadly. But I'd say it's still enjoyable if you don't mind the slower grind. So, I hope you enjoy my video. If you do, like. And if you want more content like this, don't miss out by subscribing. But it's up to you at the end of the day. Thanks for watching.